I pulled out my top 5 propagators since I know the propagation aspect of succulents is so interesting and fun. Some are obviously much slower than others. Some propagate by leaf, some better by stem, almost always faster by stem, and some by putting off pups or babies. I suppose also referred to chicks. Hens and chicks do that as well. Hens and chicks are essentially pups. So this is a lace aloe, and it has put off these babies just because it has. I water it, I keep it in a south or east facing window. I actually set it back from the window to just before the sun shines directly on it because it will get more red. This is from sun here. It'll get more like brownish red. Here you can see some sun exposure stuff there. But this mother lace aloe here has put off a lot of babies. And I'm just waiting for them to get to the size that I want them to be. They grow fastest when they're attached to the mothers, so I'm just letting them go. They're about there. And then I will trim them off, and I will wait for the trim spot to put off a root. Whenever you cut a succulent, always make sure that it is as full of water as you have experienced. I squeezed the leaves. I just watered this yesterday, so I'm not going to cut it today. They still have a lot of room to take up some water. I might even water it again today because it's so large that it can take up an awful lot. But you want to make sure they're really full of water because the water supports their root growth while they're laying on your counter, essentially. So this is a Doris Taylor, and these all grew off of a stem. This plant is wild for stem propagations. It is just every stem that I have cut off the top. When I cut these off, guaranteed 3 more of them are gonna start. You can see here it's just one cut stem, and that came off of it, and that came off of it. There might be, I guess there's one in here. It's about two per. But there was one stem that put off 3 or 4 that I cut, and then that put off 3 or 4, and it just keeps coming. So I will also, these are some of the original leaves here. I try to leave some of the original leaves on stems when I cut them, like here. These are original from the big Echeveria Hercules that I tied a string around and popped the top off of. The top of that is actually here. I popped the top off the center of it because it had gotten this very dense pink growth that was different. It was almost like there was a new succulent on the top versus the bottom. So just like with this one, if I were to do the same, I would tie a string around about right there, and then I would pop the top off. And I would then be left with a couple layers of these leaves here with the stump right there. And this top part would root. You want to make sure it's full of water when you cut it, and you can just set it on a cup. I set them on these cups that don't have anything in them, and I wait for roots to pop out there. I just cut these last week. I'm gonna say that next week I might see a pink root or 2 pop out, and once there's a root or 2 on there, then you can put it in like a 2" by 2" little container, or you can lay it on soil like this. This is just a very thin little bit of soil. You just let the roots be on the soil so that you can put water in it, so that that one little root that it has can spend some time sucking up the water. You can also put water in these cups and just let them let the roots suck up the water. I have this one here that I have not put in dirt yet, and it's just sitting in water. So you leave a couple of layers on here because you want to be able to squeeze it to know when it needs water. You can't squeeze a stem to know when it needs water. It can be a little bit of a guessing game if you just have a stem there. So you leave a couple layers of leaves, and when they start to soften, you water it and you let them firm up, and eventually these babies will come off of the stem. Now this is growth from this year. I think I cut it in spring, so it's probably 3 months that these have come here. So that's 3 months of stem growth on the Echeveria Hercules. These are leaf props of the Hercules from last year. I think these have been in here for about a year. So you see these, that's a year worth of leaf prop. That's like months worth of the top being cut off. And it is vastly different. But the leaf props for the Hercules, here I've got some, they also are very successful. These are all Hercules props here. They grow several of them. They grow pretty fast, pretty successfully, almost all of them. I throw them in a tray. When you pull them off, you want to make sure that you have a clean cut and you don't actually expose the flesh of the leaf. And you throw them in a tray and they will grow roots. Once you've got a couple roots like that, you can set them on the soil just like this. And then you can water those roots a little bit and it will hydrate the leaf and a baby will pop out there on the top, just like you see those. Now the mother leaf will support this baby growth until they've got a good root system and they're off on their own, and then the mother leaf will start to expend itself. So this one's on its way out. Those are done. I can just remove those. The babies are off to the races there. So the best leaf props that I have are these Echeveria Hercules and these Pachyphytum blue haze. The reason why the Pachyphytum, I mean the Hercules just really props well. It's not the thickest of leaves. The bigger, the better, because before you pull a leaf, before you chop a succulent, you always water it. Make sure it's full of water. Because if the leaf is full of water, that water in the leaf supports the growth of the roots and the baby. These I pulled off. I have done nothing. Everyone wants to know what my magic is. It's just a matter of the plant being good for propagation. So these thick leaves hold a lot of water. I throw them in this tray. They produce roots. A baby comes. The leaf is supporting the growth of that baby. So those roots don't necessarily need to be in water, but if you do put them in a little soil and water those roots, then it can help the mother leaf plump up and support the baby longer. The key is going to be plumpness in your leaf. It doesn't necessarily have to be this Pachyphytum blue haze, but if you have a thick leaf succulent, the chances that it's going to be a good propagator are very high. So when you take these leaves off, these also come off very well. So you want to make sure that you don't cut it at all. So you have this little eyelet there and there's no flesh exposed. You don't see any moisture really hanging out there. That's a clean cut. Then you set it in this tray and it will do what these have done in this tray. It will grow the roots. It will put a baby out. These are some Pachyphytum babies that I started a while ago, and they also grow very well from the stems. So I got this stretched out one for the purpose of propagating it. So I will pull the leaves and I will leave 2 layers at the bottom so that I can check them for water. If they soften up, then I'll water it. And then the stem of the Pachyphytums also puts off very nice, even faster growth babies. These have a little wrinkle to them. They needed watered, so I put them in my watering bin there. But that is a cut off, a small one. There you can see where I cut it and it grew this baby on the top. Also 10 times faster than the leaf, but the thicker the leaf, the more successful you are going to be. So then there is the Pearl von Nuremberg that I have a separate video from when I chopped these tops a week ago, but you can, this one just puts off a lot of babies off. If you have a nice robust stem here, it's like gold for propagating. So I cut the top off of this one. I think I have since sold the top of that one, so I don't have that to show you, but I cut the top off of it, I rooted it, and all of these popped out the stem. It's also important to know that the growing season for these is April to October. They will do a small amount of growing indoors because of the temperature. They aren't 100% dormant, but they're just not really up to speed in those winter months. This is Ohio. Different climates, different sunlight exposure, different temperatures will change their growth cycles. But if you chop something, like I could chop this Pearl von Nürnberg in October, November, and that stem could stay green like that, but need nothing, need no water. I might moisten it occasionally just to keep the roots a little pliable, but that's about it. It might not do anything all winter long. And then come April, I'll see the little babies pop out of the stem. I like to put my props outside, often underneath a tree that has east and west sun, but not 11 to 2 sun, so the tree, the canopy, protects them. Between April and October, they will get the fastest, densest, most colorful growth in that setting. If you don't have that option, a south or east facing window is great too. Most of these have been window growth. I use them in the shop to explain to people how to propagate the plants that they put in their arrangements. So these are some great propagators. If you want to have some fun with them, there is a lace aloe that puts off babies or pups. If you're gonna buy one for the purpose of propagating, try to look under its leaves and see if it's got some pups starting. It's not a fast process. So finding some pups on there and then letting them grow to the point that you want them to be before you trim them off and make sure they're full of water, and they'll grow roots and you can carry on. This is the Doris Taylor. There's another name for it that has the word fuzzy in it, obviously, but I can't remember it at this very moment. Great stem propagator, really great stem propagator. And anytime you chop these tops off, just make sure they're full of water. The top will root, the stem will grow babies. Echeveria Hercules, one of my favorite, always gorgeous. Babies grow fast and healthy, and they do great in south and east facing windows. Pachyphytum Blue Haze. The point on this one is the thickness. You can find a lot of succulents that have thick leaves, and that's going to be your key if you want to leaf propagate. A thick leaf and a thick stem. So if you are rescuing something from the department store that you see, if you see a thick stem, you can chop that top off and you can make a new succulent out of the top and propagate from the stem. So if you can view it as a propagating vehicle, that can be a helpful way to figure out what to save. And I think I've covered most of it. Let me know if you have any propagating questions from that.